Hello and welcome to the latest Wild Art Photographer of the Year awards presentation. This time it's for our category wet. So I've got Henley Spiers all lined up, ready to talk to me and our winners. And we'll get to that right after the intro. See you soon. Good evening, Henley.
Good evening, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the first time. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yes, one of our new judges for this year and the perfect judge for our category wet. So you know all about getting wet when you take pictures, don't you?
Yeah, that's pretty much exclusively what I do, being an underwater photographer. And but yes, it was interesting to think about wet as a category with the judging team this time and in the context of wild art and really, you know, trying to really think through, well, not only what are the good pictures entered, but what really fits this theme.
Yeah, exactly. Because we had quite a discussion, didn't we, about, you know, what we really wanted to see. And I think the consensus was that the picture needed to be obviously wet. It needed to scream water or, you know, some sort of fluid. It just needed to be wet. And I think, you know, those pictures that have done well and we're going to show tonight, you know, I think basically, you know, fit that bill. So yeah, it was an interesting discussion.
Yeah. I think it wasn't sufficient for it to be an underwater photo, for example. And some of the hardest cuts we had to make were pictures which were great, but didn't feel somehow wet enough. So if you feel perhaps frustrated, which is inevitable with competitions, and maybe you feel strongly about your work, don't let these results necessarily put you off, because you might have a really strong image. It's just that the fit for this actually quite novel wet category wasn't quite right in our eyes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a point that I've made sort of time and time again about competitions, you know, having been involved with them, the organization of them for so long now, is that it's such a subjective process that, you know, if you're expecting to win, a lot of the time you're going to be disappointed. You know, even if you've got what you think is an amazing picture, because it just might not resonate, you know, with the judges as much as it does with you for some reason, you know. And you also don't know what the competition is either. You know, you might have an amazing photo, but somebody might have taken something even more impressive. So yeah, I'd never get disheartened. I think that being involved in competitions, you know, should be an inspiration when you look at some of the other work as well, and, you know, some of the other winners. But yeah, you know, I get how people can get frustrated at times. I know I do.
Yeah, I mean, by its very nature, it's competitive. But if you're going to put yourselves forward into competitions, then I think you've got to be prepared for that emotional roller coaster, and you have to be willing to understand that even those who might have a great year, they're probably still going to have more failures than successes, and that's perfectly normal. And also, I think, so you need to sort of feel satisfied with your own work. And then there's a level of smartness in terms of what competitions are you going to enter, and then what categories within them, if they are separated into categories. And then, yeah, then you have to make your peace with the fact that maybe your image is good and strong, but it just wasn't its day. And so then I think the best place you can end up is at the end of the year feeling good about your own work. And if competitions are to serve anything, it is to try and boost our creativity, our desire to push the limits of our own photographic ability. And then after that, so much is out of our control. And that's before we even consider the fact that a lot of what we do is, well, this is all wildlife and nature, which that is, so much of it is out of our control. So so yeah, thank you all those for entering, and it was fun to judge it. Fascinating to be in the same room as you and other photographers who have a very different approach to this discipline. I actually learned a lot. It was very, very instructive.
No, I think that's the great thing when you get a good bunch of people together, some experienced, people experienced in different areas. I mean, as I said, you're experienced in this sort of underwater world, which, none of the other judges are necessarily. I mean, I know that some of them have done it, but they're not concentrating on that like you do. So, you bring another, area of expertise into it. And I think it was just perfect for this category, as we will see as we go through the pictures. Anyway, I've got a young award winner who is has got out of bed very, very early because they're living in New Zealand, and it's it's a little bit early on a Monday morning, so I don't want to hold her up. So let's get on and should we share our first winner, and we can go on chatting obviously about things as we go on. But let's share our first winner with you, and let me line the video up. It might help, mightn't it? So anyway, young award winner for Wet is Sophie.
Hi.
Hello. Many congratulations on winning a Young Award for Wet. And thank you so much for setting your alarm really early. And so you can join us at some, very early hour in New Zealand. What time is it? About 6 in the morning or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
6 in the morning for you. Good effort. Good effort. So thank you for that. I'm going to share your image. If I just share a screen, Henley and I'll have a quick chat, and then we'll have a chat with you about this image because it's quite special. So let me just share the screen. Go to the right place. There we are. So hopefully everybody will now be able to see this wonderful picture. And the first thing to say is it's a bird, so it gets my vote straight away. As you know, that's probably my favorite subject. But what I like about this is the fact that you've waited. I mean, presumably this kingfisher was sort of perching on the rock there, and you've waited for a wave to come in and anticipated that, that flight. And you've got this sort of crashing wave in the background, which adds all this sort of lovely interest. And as we were saying earlier, Henley, it's obviously wet, which was very, very important. So Tomasz picked this image because he's he's obviously our young judge. He's judging all our young entries this year. And you'll remember Tomasz, who did very, very well in the first year of the competition with all those amazing images. And he does very well with, some other, very well-known competitions too. He's an amazing talent. So he picked this one out as his favorite. I think it's just because he loved the action, and he loved that, you've obviously got that wet element into the frame. So this is something we talked about in the judges meeting, wasn't it, Henley? This sort of need to have a picture that's obviously wet.
Yeah, but of course that can't be the only element. So I think we have to, first off, and Sophie, I'm really curious to hear more about your story behind the image, but sometimes it's helpful to hear how others perceive your own work. And I think for me, this is an immediately eye-catching picture. When it's certainly wet through the crashing wave in the background, you've got a technical ability evident through that kind of fairly shallow depth of field and pinpoint focus on the bird as it's in motion, which I imagine is pretty tricky. And then for me, what kind of gives it that extra cachet is the fact that kingfisher no doubt needed to be close to the water for something which is beneficial to it. And yet here we catch it in the moment where it's almost escaping and rejecting that very element. And so there's that kind of that interplay, which for me sort of leaves this image lingering just a little bit longer.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Sophie, why don't you tell us a bit more about the image, where you took it and what you're doing at the time, that sort of thing. Just give it a bit of background.
I took it on a beach around Mount Maunganui in New Zealand. And we were just walking around the mount and I had my camera with me, which was lucky. And then I saw this kingfisher eating crabs and stuff off the rocks. Yeah, and I saw the waves were really rough that day. So yeah, I saw him sitting on a rock right next to the sea, and I could see a big swell coming in. So I quickly rushed down to the beach, and yeah, shot him.
Did you have this sort of image in your mind when you rushed down there? Did you think, oh, that wave's going to come in and it's going to fly off, and I could get this sort of takeoff, which is, I assume this is what this is. It's just that sort of moment of liftoff, as that wave comes crashing in.
Yeah, I didn't expect an image like this at all. I thought he would stay still, rather than take off. But yeah.
Well, yeah, happy days that he did. Did you get any of him perched before he actually took flight, or?
Yeah, I did. I've got a whole
Yeah.
series as the wave came in.
Yeah, you see, that's the, that's really good intuition, I think, is, when you see something like that and you think there's an element, the picture of the kingfisher perched on the rock would have been interesting enough. And I'm sure, getting it all in focus and getting exposure right and everything, it would be a nice enough picture. But what you've done here is that sort of crashing wave has added that extra drama, and it's taking off, and there's so much more to that sort of image than just something that's perched. Even if there is a bit of, even if there is a bit of water sort of splashing around in the background, I think this is so dynamic that it holds your attention for much, much longer than one of those more static images. And this is the sort of thing that I look for quite a lot. If you haven't got that sort of dramatic light, that sort of end of day or beginning of day light that could add the drama to the scene, you have to look for something else. And this is what I think you've done really, really well here. You've looked for that, for that energy from the wave, which is reciprocated by the energy from the bird. So there's a nice balance to that. So I think, yes, it's a tremendous image. So it's a very well done.
What's your photographic journey, Sophie? How did you get into this strange passion?
My mum had a little point and shoot camera, so I kind of got started using that because I love wildlife, and so I'd just go out and take photos with that. And then I won a competition, and I won the Auckland Festival of Photography Youth Award, and a friend of mine lent me a camera, like a little DSLR to use for a year, and that kind of really got me into it. And yeah, then I brought my own gear.
Fantastic. So what are you shooting with now?
A Nikon D500 with a Tamron 150 to 600 millimeter lens.
That's a nice combination, actually, with that extra bit of reach with that crop sensor, and the D500 is a really, really good camera. Yeah, really, really good camera. And the autofocus on that is pretty swift.
Yeah,
it needs to be for subjects like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, fantastic. So what's next for you then, Sophie? What is it that sort of, what's your main passion? Is it birds, or is it
wildlife?
Is it just nature, wildlife in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're certainly in a good part of the world for it.
Yeah, New Zealand doesn't have many mammals, so
no,
kind of has birds.
Yeah, but it's pretty good from a bird perspective. You've got lots of really good stuff to go after there. So yeah. So what's next for you? What's the next project?
I'm not sure. Maybe I was thinking of entering the New Zealand Geographic Photographer of the Year, which is like our main competition here. So yeah, I got to get some good pictures for that.
Yeah. Well, and do you find that sort of shooting for competitions is, it sort of inspires you and sort of gets you really creative?
Yeah, like motivates me.
Yeah. Well, that's really good, because we were sort of, as we said, we were talking about that, in the intro, obviously, and the reasons for people entering competitions. I think that's a really good attitude. Is using it for motivation, win, lose, or whatever. I think is a really good attitude to have. So
yeah. And in your case, Sophie, I mean, it's a strange industry, photography, and competitions can actually really be a big boost to your career if that's the path you end up going. So keep at it. Great work.
Yeah, amazing picture. So let me just stop sharing that screen for a minute, and we'll bring you up larger on the screen for everybody to see. Let's have a little look and see if we, anybody's saying hello or making comments on your photograph. So Silky Holman says hello from Germany. Hi there. And Crystal says spectacular, inspiring image, Sophie. Congratulations and keep shooting. Good advice. Yeah, I mean, if you keep coming up with work like that, then I'm sure you're going to do very well. If in competitions in particular, with images like that. So yeah, keep shooting. Keep shooting.
Thanks.
And once again, thank you so much for setting your alarm so early in the morning and coming on to talk to me and Henley and sharing the story of that image with everybody. That's hopefully that's going to inspire some of our younger audience to to go out and emulate what you've been doing, because I think it's a fantastic shot, and I love looking at the images that come in from the young section of the competition, because as I've said before, young people don't have any rules to break. It's so they're not confined by they're not constrained by those by those sort of normal rules. They just go out and they feel it. Whereas I think we as more seasoned photographers tend to always do what we've done before. We find it very, very difficult to sort of break out of those of those habits. So no, I think it's always really refreshing to see the young entries. So yeah, fantastic image. Very, very many congratulations again. And I said, and thanks for coming on and talking to us at such an early hour in the morning for you.
Thank you.
So is it a school day for you?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh dear. Okay. Well, at least you got something to talk to your mates about.
Yeah.
Haven't you? Guess what I did this morning? Anyway, many congratulations. We'll let you go and prepare for your, for the school day. And thank you for entering the competition. And I hope to see some more of your work.
Thank you.
Amazing stuff.
Well done,
All right,
Sophie.
Sophie. Congratulations again. And we'll speak again soon, no doubt. Okay. Right. Cheers, Sophie.
Bye.
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 Wow.
That was
Amazing.
fun.
It was. Yeah, it's always fun. I love the Young Award. It's just so, as I said,
But it's so interesting that actually competitions are really driving her. So that's it's not always the case, but it's a vote for this kind of thing.
Exactly, and it's exactly the right attitude, I think, to have about competitions. You can't. I know people do take them seriously, but you can't expect to win.
Never.
Well, there might be somebody we're talking to that's done quite well recently.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, there we go. Right. So what are we going to do next? Right. The Founders' Choice Award, I'm going to leave to the end because our Founders' Choice Award winner can't be here. So let's not keep people who are waiting in the wings waiting longer than they need to. So let's go to our Bronze Award winner. So Bronze Award winner, we're just about to talk to you. But before we do that, let's share our Bronze Award winner with everybody. So let's go and get the right video, Rob. There we go. Okay, so our Bronze Award winner for Wet is... Simon.
Hello.
Good evening, and welcome to the awards presentation. And well done on your Bronze Award for the category. I'll bring your image up onto the screen. Henley and I'll have a chat. I'm expecting Henley to chat more than me about this one because it's obviously his realm as well as yours. So let's bring that up, and then we'll have a chat with you about sort of how you took it and and the story behind it. So let's just share that image with everybody. Let's go to the right one. There we go. Henley, what was so inspiring and about this image?
Well, I had to recuse myself from the judging.
You did
when this came up. Because I found myself in the unusual position of not only knowing the photograph and the photographer, but having been just maybe 2 meters from Simon in the water when he created this breathtaking image. So, my feelings aside, it came out with the rest of the judges as being one of the strongest in the competition. And I think the sort of these next 3 images, which we're going to talk about, there was certainly, and even, a couple after, there was really some debate about what's going to be the overall winner. So what makes it so special? Well, I think it has immediate impact, and no matter who you are, it has, this charismatic animal in the center. It has a beautiful symmetry of the sardines parting around it. It has the silhouettes of the other California sea lions in the background. It has a bit of the surface, which for me kind of gives it that extra. This is wet. It's not just underwater, but there's a feeling of kind of that for this particular category. And having been in this location a number of times, I know how incredible these elements are, but also how difficult it is to bring them together. It's one thing to get a really nice portrait of a sea lion. It already has its challenges. But to get this perfect pose from the male sea lion, plus the sardines around it, plus the perfect composition from those sea lions in the rear of the frame, and this is late in the day, which gives that soft lighting, but makes the exposure really tricky. You're using flash here. You get it wrong underwater, you're going to have a bunch of backscatter, because all of those sardines have been doing they've been doing little poos all day. So that water is full of sardine poo. You get this wrong and it ends up really messy, and you've just done it all. And actually, I remember when Simon showed me this photo, my jaw dropped a little bit, because it's fantastic. And I'm really impressed. And I'm sorry to do this, because, Simon is someone who gives me a very hard time on occasion, but I'll also give him credit as a photographer. He didn't just get lucky here. He came in as someone who's not hugely experienced in underwater photography, but he showed both excellent dive skills in order to allow these sea lions to become comfortable in his presence. It's a different thing to have a male sea lion be comfortable in your presence to a little pup. And he also showed the required patience. He sat in the spot, and I can vouch for it because I did the same thing next to him without the same great result. He sat in this spot for at least 45 minutes to an hour, just waiting for this shot, which maybe that doesn't sound very long for you topside photographers, but underwater, the clock is always ticking. We just don't get the luxury of time. So that's actually remarkable patience for an underwater photographer. So yeah, hats off. It's tremendous.
I mean, I said, I remember the judges meeting, and obviously you just had to step aside, because you just said, look, I know the photographer. I was with him when he took this picture. I can't get involved in discussing this, other than telling you, how skillful, this is. But I think, the other judges that looked at this, I think looked at it purely from a photographic point of view and a compositional point of view. And as you say, it's so strong because of all those elements. What I liked about it, as you say, you've got that element of the surface, and you've got that lovely light, that lovely sort of backlighting coming in. But you can also see the bottom as well. You've got that little patch of sand and rocks at the bottom there. So you've got a sense of where it is, and sort of complete environment, if you like. Then you've got this sea lion, as you say, which is perfectly posed with these little flippers in such a symmetrical position, but also the fish, the way they've parted is so symmetrical. You've got that little gap underneath the sea lion itself, and you've got this almost like these curtains of fish around it, and this lovely sort of clear area in the middle. And then you've got these these other animals in the background, just as sort of silhouettes, but it's the lighting on the face, that little pop of flash, and you just see enough detail. The rest of it is pretty dark, and you just see this shape. I think there's that pop of flash on the face, which it's so subtle. And that's the that's the real skill with flash, as we've talked about before in some of these lives. I remember, people like Kurum Khan. I remember his picture of a skunk he took in his backyard. Such a subtle bit of flash at night, and I think that's a real skill. That is a real, and that's what all those elements together, really, really difficult to bring it all off, in one shot like this. So it, very rarely happens, as people out there will know, that you get it like this. But Simon, no, this was outstanding. Really, really dramatic. Fantastic image. So tell us a little bit more, about the sort of situation behind the shot and and how you got it.
Well, thank you both for all the kind words. Thanks, Henley, as well. And yeah, so this site is really special. Los Islotes is a really highly protected site. It's part of a national park. The California sea lions there really thrive. The numbers in hundreds. I mean, some people estimate up to sort of 800 in number of individuals, and they aggregate in these groups called harems, which have one male. And those males, particularly when there's lots of pups around, when it's breeding season, get very, very territorial. This was my first dive, not this particular dive, but this trip was my first dive with California sea lions. And my first encounter with a male was quite intimidating. When they want to get territorial, they will let you know that you've entered their space and they don't appreciate it. And as Henley said, patience was really important here. I spotted from the distance this group. And really tried to take my time to approach them, completely ignoring what was going on the side. And over the course of probably 15 minutes, it took me to approach just a couple of meters to get really into their area and get them really comfortable. There were a couple of females there, certainly a couple of pups as well, and the male was coming in and out. And then it was at one point, I looked to my right, and that's when I noticed Henley had done the same thing. He was 2 or 3 meters away, as he said. And then looked to my left, another one of my diving colleagues had also approached in very much the same way. And so all three of us just slowly came close, and the group were just really calm. And at one point, this male spotted us, and I appreciate what you say, Henley, but luck is definitely a huge part here. The male decided to come towards me instead of to my right to Henley or to my left to my other colleague. And again, similar to our young winner, I have a whole series of this male approaching, and looking through them, there's subtleties of some things that might be better than others, some parts that might look better, but really what made this photo of the series stand out was that flash that lit up the face. And not all those photos in that series had that flash, or the flash just wasn't timed quite right. And this one, for me, in that series, stood out.
That's a really, really good point, actually, you make about taking a series of shots. And as we say from the young our young winner Sophie as well, and this is a mistake I see in competitions. And I've been through this before. I've said this before to people, that sometimes choosing a photograph from a series of shots is quite difficult, because you might get a series of really good images and you can't decide yourself as a photographer which one's the best one. Sometimes you get a shot like this, which is clearly head and shoulders above everything else, and that's the frame. But I see it time and time again in competitions that rather than pick one shot from the series, people enter four or five in that series, hoping that the judges will pick the best one. And that tactic does not work, because what will happen is that you split the judges, because one will like one shot better than another. So you really just got to hone in on picking the best shot, be objective about it, and say, look at all the elements, look at it really closely, put the pictures to one side for a bit, then come back to them and keep looking at them and pick the best image, pick that one frame, the best frame that you think, demonstrates what you've taken, the best out of that series, and enter that one only. I think it's really, really important to do that if you're serious about competition photography, because you've got enough competition as without competing with yourself, which is effectively what you're doing. So I think that's a real skill in a competition, and you've done it really well here by picking that. I mean, I don't know what's either side, in terms of your series of shots. I don't know what else you've got, but I think from what we've discussed and the elements that all come together here, I think, you know, you've made a very, very good choice. As I said, for me, it's just that pop of flash on the face. It just gives you enough detail. The expression, it's just, yeah, it's fantastic. So very well done. Very well done.
Comments coming in from Silky and Crystal too on that. That's
yeah. So I think people can see that, but he said, yeah, Silky says, love that shot. It's such an amazing underwater world, which I unfortunately never experienced yet. Since I'm not a diver, it's great. And I think that's the point as well, isn't it? If you don't do this, I think we can all appreciate, you know, how difficult this is, even if you haven't, you know, even if you're not a seasoned diver, you know, I think you can appreciate just how difficult it is to get in the right place, you know, in an alien environment effectively. So it's a hell of a skill. And Crystal says, Simon, this is mind blowing in so many ways. Can't stop looking at all of the incredible elements. And that is another thing which makes a really good competition photograph, is when you can't stop looking at it and you find different things in an image all the time, each time you come back to it. And I think that is another really good element to a successful image.
I just wanted to make a point on the person that commented that they weren't a diver. So I wouldn't say I'm a strong diver. I've not dived that many times. I started diving when actually I was 14, but haven't done it consistently at all. And this was probably, in terms of single dives, the maybe 5th or 6th dive I've ever taken my camera down. You know, when I went with Henley, I felt like it was a really steep learning curve. I came with a stronger photography skill set than a diving skill set. So I think if it's a topic that interests people, it's certainly, if I can do it, it's certainly not outside other people's grasps.
Well, we're going to do a podcast with Henley. We've been trying to, because you may know that we've been doing a podcast with Josh Galicki. We've, you know, so we've been running nearly a year now. I think we've done about 12 episodes or something. But we're going to get Henley on, and we're going to talk about underwater photography. We just haven't been able to get the diaries together yet.
Well, I mean, you know, as a precursor to that, and following on from what Simon said, you know, we gratefully accept your pats on the back, Rob, about sort of how hardcore we are getting into this alien environment and all of that. But, you know, but on the other hand, for anyone who, and you don't have to be a diver, like snorkeling is great. Anyone who dips their face beneath the seas or lake or pond or whatever it might be is going to be opened up to a new world, but also a very different kind of interaction, mostly from wildlife. I mean, you know, these are, that male, that's a good sized lion sized mammal, and it's very happily interacting, you know, within a meter of us. And just think how cool that is, you know, sort of that. So that's the privilege and hopefully the carrot to more people getting a little bit interested about photography, wildlife photography, nature photography, underwater.
Absolutely. I think snorkeling's a good place to start, isn't it? You know, and you don't have to spend a fortune on kit either. I mean, I've seen some amazing stuff with GoPros and things like that. You know, just
very dispiriting for all of us with all of the gear.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know how much those housings are.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's stop sharing that image and let's bring Simon up larger on the screen. Simon, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming on and having a chat about what is a pretty special image, I have to say. You know, I loved that. Yeah, pretty amazing. So thank you very much for that. And so what's next for you? What are you working on now?
Got some trips probably planned next year, underwater trips. Nothing this year, sadly.
He's got to get married. So
yeah,
oh,
that's right. That'll take priority this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's something we've got in common this year, actually.
Oh,
it is.
Congratulations,
yeah,
Rob.
it is. Yeah. So Jen and I, we're we decided we would in October. So yeah, congratulations, Simon.
Thank you. Mine's in September, so just a bit before yours.
Yeah, good stuff.
So
excellent.
honeymoon might take my camera along. I say might, it's pretty much a certainty. If I'm lucky, I'll get it underwater, and then hopefully another underwater trip next year as well.
Oh, I'm definitely taking my camera. Jennifer knows me too well. Definitely taking mine. Anyway, well, congratulations on your forthcoming nuptials, and I hope that all goes well. And get out with your camera. I want to see some more of this sort of
More.
stuff. Yeah. Simon, thank you very much. Been lovely to chat
you.
to you, and well done on an amazing image. So yeah, and hopefully we'll talk again.
Thank you very much.
All right. Cheers, Simon.
Bye.
Nice background, Simon.
Okay. Yeah, these two guys were having a background competition before we came on air. Who's got the best background?
Simon won the moment he appeared. It's so minimalist.
I mean, Henley even asked Sophie who had the best background, and of course she said me. with my symmetry.
Yeah, it's also good. Although I'm starting to doubt whether that was an entirely objective choice, Rob. You know, as the chairman of this competition.
Well, there you go. You know, she knows which side her bread's buttered. You see.
There you go.
Right now, we're going to do our Silver Award winner, who actually didn't arrive before we started, but I'm sure it won't be a problem. So Silver Award winner, just to let you know, because I can see you're there, we'll be talking to you in just a second. So let's get the video lined up. Play the right one. So yeah, this is someone we might have talked to before. Anyway, our Silver Award winner for wet is I said to you last time, Irma, this is becoming a habit.
Oh.
Becoming a good habit, isn't it?
You heard me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great.
Yes.
We can hear you.
I hope in every must we will.
You've done it again. You've done it again. Irma, I'm going to bring up your image. Henley and I are going to have a chat, and then we'll have a chat with you. I said, it's almost like you need your own parking space, don't you? Outside the awards presentation, you come on so often. Anyway, yes. Right. Let me show this image. So I'll move it onto the right one. Might help. There we go. Okay. Share the screen. There we go. Right. Okay, Henley. What's so special about this image that you can't already see?
Well, there was a few funny moments during judging. So as you said, I'm the new guy bringing the underwater photography expertise to a certain extent, whereas all of you have a different expertise. And there were some images which had a wow factor for me, but then understanding more about the picture from your perspectives, I started to realize, oh, okay, it has let's say it has a kind of a mainstream, it has a completely uninitiated appeal, but actually it doesn't really hit that sort of upper echelon. This was one which I really, from before I met anyone and I was doing the pre-judging and scoring things, an image which stood out. And it still stands out when you put it on as a preview here. I think, oh, wow, this is nice. All of that bokeh coming in, really sharp eyes and sort of the behavior. Like, I love the concept of getting an artistic behavior shot. And I suppose that's what you've achieved here, which is one of the hardest things to do in nature imagery. And then the nice thing was that all of the other judges also agreed in this case that, yes, this is something really special. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to remember what this competition sets out to do. And it sets out to look for artistic wildlife images. So we're getting away from that sort of literal representation, and we are trying to introduce those sort of artistic elements to it to celebrate, how wonderful wildlife is. And I think, bokeh is such a, which is obviously the element here, which adds that artistic, artistic flavor to it. But I think it's been done so well because the background is those bokeh balls are just, it's hard to explain what makes bokeh work, and sometimes and other times it's not so impressive. And I think what is, you've got this whole sort of wall of bokeh in the background, which has just got such a nice balance to it. Then you've got this little strip in the middle, which is where the frogs are. And then you've got just a little corner in that bottom right hand corner, which just sort of frames everything off again. So that's what I think makes it work. It's got such a nice balance. And the other thing about it is that there's always something for your eye to see. You're always looking around for little bits of the frame. So to start with, your eyes go straight to the male on top, and straight to the eye, and you spend some time looking at at the male, and then you realize there's another frog underneath, and then you realize there's this sort of spawn around, and I think that's what makes it so special, is and the color tones to it are all complementary, and there's just such a nice balance to it. And I think it's really difficult to get all those elements right. And Irma, you just have this ability to be able to do that time and time again, because as I've said before, the judging is completely anonymous and nobody knows who's taken these shots. They are just picking the best images that they feel fit categories and do what the competition sets out to do, which is to bring in this artistic element to it and celebrate wildlife through the artistry of photography. And you just have this knack of putting all those elements together in such a way that make images stand out. And this is what's happened again. So Irma, tell us a bit more about this picture and how you took it.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. You choose my photo for Silver Award. I think, Rob, I like very much to take picture in backlight. If you remember all my picture, the flowers, pelicans, cormorants, everything, it was very different, but each of them, it was in backlight. And this picture about the more frogs is the same in backlight. I love these animals. There is a very, very lovely, and it's very hard to the time, because in every year the mares became blue only for 4-5 days. That's
I was going
all.
to say it's a breeding thing, isn't it? It's only in only
Because
at breeding time.
the
Yeah.
mares, it's yes, in breeding time, it's a brown. Only for meeting time, they become blue. And if the weather it's not good, and they not go out from the mood, they staying in the middle, and you can't make a photo. Usually in every 4-5 years it's a possibility, because depend the level of the water. It's not enough water, they stayed in the middle of the mood. It's a very lot water, it's not good. Last time it's a good situation, it was in 2020. And this is a little mood, and they lot of frog, I think some thousands. And we spent there 3 days. We make a conversation with the ranger, and we have a permission to go there. We stay next to the mood, and we waiting for frogs. When the people apart there, they immediately disappeared in the water. But if you patient and you stay there 5 minutes without not moving, they apart from the water, and they come, and they very curious, and sometimes go in front of us 20 centimeter in inch, I think 5 inch or the same. Yes, and sometimes they come there and go to the lens hood. And yes, it's yes, and we stayed there 3 days, and after you stay very patient and waiting, not you go to them, you waiting to the frogs come to you, and sometimes go under the water, and example some um, grass on the head, you can go out the grass and it's no problem.
Yeah, it's
And
amazing, isn't it?
yes,
There's some similarities here, and for people to take away, with what some of our other winners do as well, because they know the behavior of the animal. That's really, really important. That came across when we were talking to Simon, about the sea lions. So it's knowing the environment, it's knowing the behavior, and knowing what to expect. But the other thing is being patient and waiting for the animals to come to you rather than chasing things around. So you presumably you're lying there and just waiting for them to to come
oh
up to you.
yes,
So I think that's another very, very important point, because what happens when animals are comfortable with you, you get natural behavior. And when you get natural behavior, the images are just so much better. I mean, nobody if you're photographing birds, for example, which, as is my thing, nobody wants to see a startled bird. That bird's not going to it's not going to display the behavior that makes a good photograph. If it's cautious, if it's nervous. So this is a really important point, and I think there's a commonality here, that people that do well in these in this competition, that they take this measured and considered approach, an ethical approach to their subjects. So I think that's a very, very important thing for people to take away from this, and it's exactly
yes.
what you've done here.
I
So
think yes, for nature photographer is the most important to be patient, because we
yeah,
go a lot of time and sometimes nothing good photo, but we go again and we writing, and very important to know how the animals it's moving and what they making. Very important to know the animals habit.
absolutely, yeah. Because if you can predict behavior, then your results are going to be so much better. And I think, Henley, you can relate to that, particularly in the sort of underwater world, where you might not be able to move so quickly into different positions. To anticipate behavior is a very important element of what you do, isn't it?
Yes,
So-
and the more frogs, it some gray hair on. It's circling under the mood, and they eat the frog.
Yeah.
But we were there in the next of the mood, and they not eat the frogs. In these 3 days, I think a lot of frogs
Yeah, I'm sure that.
became alive because we were there, and the gray heron not eating that. And in Hungary, the value of this one frog, it's 140 euro per piece,
Wow.
because
Amazing.
they védett, az hogy van? Confident.
What
Yeah.
lens did you use, if you don't mind me asking, Emma?
I use Canon macro 105 macro f 2.8.
2.8. Yeah.
Yes, 2.8.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
What
never-
were you at aperture wise? Was it wide open here, or?
Oh no, I think it was 2.8 or
Yeah.
3. I don't know exactly, but maximum 3.2. Not
Yeah. Which is the secret to getting the bokeh, is getting those out of focus highlights, and that's what creates those
on
lovely
the
bokeh
band.
balls.
It was the light and the water
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
back room.
Mm.
And if you see in the down, it's a male, and under the male they put the eggs. They put usually 1,500, between 1,500 and 2,000 eggs
Wow.
in one massive, and they stay there and protect.
I was going to say, because in the common frogs in the UK, you know, the males protect the eggs. So this is the same. You know, they have the same habit. You know, yeah.
Oh, yes, but
Yeah.
they protect together usually. But
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
and
Interesting.
this it's a very interesting because the mare became blue only for maximum 5 days, and if you go there later, they only brown.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
amazing. I mean, a blue
yes,
frog. Come on.
yes,
What's not to love about a blue frog?
yes, and only the mares became
Yeah.
blue. I think they like to be more nicer for female.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yes.
And sometimes more males trying to grab the female,
Yeah.
uh,
So the
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 same
bluer you are, the
females,
more successful you are. I bet that's the case, isn't it?
and they staying a lot of hours in one position.
Yeah. No, it's incredible.
Yes,
But I said,
it's a
yeah, just wanted to ask Henley about the, you know, the sort of behavioural thing, you know, going back to the sort of underwater. This is something you can relate to, isn't it, Henley? I would think, you know, this sort of waiting and anticipating behaviour, you know, to get the best shots.
yes.
Yes and no, because the other interesting thing is how long we get underwater is often so restricted.
Yeah.
It's hard as an underwater photographer unless you're on a snorkel, but even then you might, there's many considerations. So underwater, of course, if you're relatively deep, there's the physiological problems with sort of basically absorbing too much gas. There's also how quickly you cool underwater. So even if you're on a snorkel, there's probably a time limit on how long you can be in the water. And so, it's hard for us to achieve that sort of maybe one of the most beautiful feelings in nature photography, which is a sense of becoming part of the environment and having the time and giving the animals the time, is actually quite hard and perhaps even impossible to achieve in underwater photography. Maybe that's something we lack because we're always on the clock. Even when you're trying to be patient, I've got to go soon.
Oh yes, you not have enough air to stay.
Exactly.
Yes, I am a diver too, but I not take photos under the.
No?
No, only with a little camera, but only for.
Henley, if Irma starts taking pictures under the water, be scared. You're going to have some competition.
I already am. I'm even curious, Irma, about what if you had a camera which was a little bit underwater here? Would that be?
Oh, you have only a little camera, and not the normal camera. I not because.
Yeah, I just think it's quite shallow as well.
Yeah.
But yes, I
won't encourage you then.
I have another picture here. If you remember, with the fish, it's flying under the surface.
I remember that
later.
Yeah. Irma, I'm going to stop sharing that screen for a minute. I'm going to bring you up large. Congratulations again on another amazing image. You are a very, very consistent photographer. You're coming up with some amazing stuff. There's one comment coming in from Crystal who says, Irma, your artwork is always stunning and beautiful. And I think that sort of sums it up very nicely. So thank you, Crystal, for that. You summed that up perfectly. Irma, congratulations. It's been really nice talking to you again, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.
And chatting to us and sharing all that lovely knowledge about about that frog with us, which is fascinating. So yeah, thank you very much, and I've no doubt we'll talk to you again at some point because you keep coming up with some really, really lovely stuff. So yeah, it's been lovely to talk to you again. And
Thank you very
and
much.
thank you for your time. And we'll see you again soon.
I hope.
Okay.
Well
All
done.
right.
Great to hear the story. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Irma. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye. Right, which brings us on to our Gold Award winner. So, Gold Award winner, time to wake up.
Oh, I hope he's done the entry.
He'll be fine. I can see him. I can see him laughing away. So, yeah. Right. So let's do the Gold Award. So, our Gold Award winner for wet is. Oh, I love this picture. It's
Congratulations.
really
Thank you,
special.
thank you.
Yes, congratulations, Matthew. That's a really special picture. Let's bring it up on the screen. So let me just get to the right place. Bring your image up on the screen. And where are we? Present. Hang on. Share the screen. There we go. Well, as an underwater photographer, Henley, I'm going to let you have first crack at this.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, congratulations again. First place, which to be awarded is always great. To bag the top spot is something else. And you know, there's always a moment, because I haven't looked at this image since we judged. And then there's another moment where it flashes back up on your screen, and you're hoping not to think, oh, did we get it wrong? And I didn't feel.
Don't say that now.
No, I didn't feel a shred of regret. And I think it's not only a beautiful picture, and I'll share a little bit about why I think that is in a second, but I think it's also the perfect winner for the wild art wet category. And, you know, this is an unusual fish, garfish, which I don't know much about, but I can't recall seeing any pictures of them before, so there can't be that many about. So there's just to begin with, there's some points for originality. Freshwater environment, I believe, if you were shooting in Florida.
Yeah.
And then not only that, you have this quite extraordinary prehistoric looking fish, which sort of draws us in, but you've added a touch, you know, sort of, we've got a reflection. So that's your decision in terms of the angle you're going to take on this fish. We've got a little bit of Snell's window incorporated. So we have a suggestion of kind of like the forest or the woodland, which is around. And then you've used this slow shutter kind of motion spin technique. But what I like about it, and I'm fond of motion blur and images, but what I like is actually it has a little subtlety to it. It's not a kind of a really linear blur which you've created. It's more of a sort of a soft artistic hue which surrounds the garfish, and yet we have it pin sharp thanks to the flash on the main subject, and even a sort of a nice counterpoint on the reflection. And then I even like, and I don't know if this was by design or not, but I like it, is that the point of the spinning axis is that little branch on the floor in the bottom left, rather than the fish. It's kind of, I could put some sort of explanation to that, but I just say that I feel it works. I'd rather see the image spinning around that point than let's imagine it was spinning around the middle of the garfish. I think that's better. And so, yeah, I think in terms of originality, impact, artisticness, and if you compare it to Simon's shot, which I think both of these, if we look at underwater photography, I think they're really special images. But what elevated this when it came to the debate about this category and why this should be the winner, I think is that you, the photographer, have added your own artistic touch to it in a sort of maybe more abstract way, and I think that pleased all of the judges. So great work.
It's kind of got that, you know, from my perspective, it's got that sort of whirlpool effect, hasn't it? And as you're saying, it's centered around that sort of log in the in the bottom left corner of the frame. And I think that acts as that anchor. And then you've got this lovely there's a lovely it's just a lovely flow to the whole image. That sort of swirl, that whirlpool effect just creates this flow which brings your eye all the way around the frame, and you end up back at that log. I always do anyway. I sort of kind of go around the frame. You go, okay, I can see the surface because I've got that little crescent of surface at the at the top of the frame, which is really great, and it's balanced by that lighter area in the bottom part of the frame. And as you said, you've just got this log which just anchors everything, and I think without it would lose something. It really would. And I think that really makes it. So yeah, I'm interested to hear, Matthew, whether that was accident or design, that log in the bottom left.
Well, I appreciate all the kind words. And if you saw all the hundreds of failures of this picture over the course of that day, you would know that it's there. The log is nice, and the little bit of light hitting there is nice. But especially with the gar, it's not like you can necessarily sit in one place and wait for them to get comfortable with you, because all they'll do is just move and stay somewhere else. So like Henley was saying before, being even snorkeling, you can be limited by time. And while I had a lot of time in the water on this day, it gets very, very cold. Even like those springs are a constant 72 degrees all year round. But if the air is cold, which it was that day, you get cold from that, and there's no relief in the sun. And then after a couple hours, 72 degrees is very, very cold, especially when you're not really moving, because when you're in those spring environments, you just kind of float. You don't even necessarily need fins. So that day there's this one. A lot of the springs in Florida aren't doing so well anymore. They've gotten polluted by agricultural runoff, or they've been destroyed by too many people. This particular one happens to be extremely healthy. And on that day we had, 200 or 300 gar in there. And you would think with that many that they'd be relatively easy to shoot, and they are not at all. And we talked a little bit about it before we started, how they're one of those subjects that I guess all wildlife photographers can probably relate to, where as soon as you get within photo range, they turn just a little bit. And it's not like they swim away. They just casually turn and then drift in another direction. So I have a lot of pictures of gar butts, or like behind the gills or something like that. And Henley mentioned he likes motion blur. It's one of the reasons he's one of my favorite photographers, is he uses it a lot. And it's one of my favorite techniques too. And one of the things I like about it is when you press the shutter, you don't necessarily know what the final image is going to look like, even if you have all your lighting and everything dialed in, because you don't know if the fish is going to move at the last minute. You don't know how the water is going to look. And it's one of my favorite things about the slow shutter style, is that it can change just enough from when you press the shutter to give you a really unique and wild look. And one of the things I was enjoying about the springs is because you have so many different colors in a relatively short space. When you did the slow shutter, they kind of blend together. So you get like the ghostly blue, the dark blue, the green. And then I liked it too, which is one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of the spin motion blurs generally. But I kind of like with you guys how the gar is kind of in the spin instead of it originating from the spin. But that it's still sharp and the whole fish is very clear, and that the spin kind of goes around it.
I think it adds that dynamic element, and it adds lots of texture as well. I think it's very, very clever, because the thing is that judges like to see different images. They do, I don't know, as a bird photographer, for example, there are certain species and there are certain things that are done in similar ways all the time, and you see a picture and they're nice pictures, but you see it again and again and again, and then you'll find somebody then does something different and approaches the subject in a different way, and then that has impact because you've not seen it before. And I think this is what this style of photography is doing, is it's as Henley was saying, it's an unusual species. I mean, I can't remember ever seeing a picture of gar in a competition. I could be wrong, but I don't think I have. So that it's an unusual species to start with. So that piques your interest because it's a fish that I've heard about, and I have seen on the television, and I've got, crikey, quite like to see one of those because I love fish. But you've done something. I know from your work that obviously you've done well. With the salmon. Last year. That sort of adding that element of motion gives a dynamic element to the photograph, which is not easy to do. And I think that you saying about there are so many frames that you've discarded, but you keep trying and keep going and keep going. I think that's another common something that links you with other successful people in competitions, is that you keep trying and trying and trying, and the process is iterative. So you go, okay, well, I've been there, I've tried that, I like this bit, I like that element of what I've done there, I don't like that element. If I add something extra in here, like a pop of flash or move the camera in a slightly different way, then perhaps I can add that extra element, that extra something, that extra ingredient that makes my images stand out over other people's pictures. And I think that's part of the secret sauce, really, when it comes to successful wildlife images.
And one of the other things that I like, especially about the slow shutter, and you and I have discussed this before, is how like the underwater world is not a static place. Like there are things that stay in one spot, but it's very chaotic. Everything's moving. There's constant flow and all that kind of thing. And I like showing that in pictures because I think it gives a pretty good representation of what the underwater world is like. And admittedly, a Florida spring is not the same kind of chaos as a salmon river, but still, there's ripples on the surface, all the fish are moving, there's water coming out of the actual spring itself. So I think that adding the motion can help with that as well. And then, like gar are just a cool fish. They're really unique, and they'll sit there and look at you, and of course, until you try to take a picture. And you can just picture them having been here for millions of years, because they have all their teeth are showing. They look very prehistoric and intimidating, and they're not especially small. Like we have some individuals here that can probably push 5 feet, and then you have alligator gar in other states that can be pushing 8 or 9, which is kind of terrifying to think about it, especially because they live in very murky water, and yes, legitimately look like an alligator with huge toothy mouths. But yeah,
I'm looking at it again, and is that just another gar in the background? I've given it credit as a reflection, but is that just another gar?
The one above the main fish?
Yeah.
Yes. So that all of the light patches in the background are all other gar as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one of the other issues that I had with them is they don't, even though they gather in groups, they don't move in the same direction necessarily. They're all kind of haphazard. So I have a lot of frames where I'll have one fish that's nicely placed, and then the rest of them are all kind of in weird directions that kind of they're not aesthetically pleasing. So having 2 in the same direction was really nice to get, especially because the one was perfectly parallel. You can see its eye, you can see its teeth. It's not pointing the other direction. But I have genuinely, I've deleted most of them now, but hundreds of pictures from that day. And this is the only one where there's multiple in the frame and they're lined up in the same direction.
That's another skill, as I was saying earlier, is picking the right frame. It's picking that image which has all those elements and going, no, that's the one. Yes, I've got a load of other stuff, but I'm not going to get seduced by those. This is the frame. This is the one that works the best.
Yeah,
and I think that's a real skill.
I have another picture that I think I like more, but it's not really fit for the competition, but it just shows a whole bunch of the gar in a much bigger scene. And you can see in that picture what I mean, that they're all pointed in different directions and there's no symmetry, no nothing. And the more I've sat with this picture since I took it, which was like back in, I don't know, I think February or something like that, maybe March, the more I enjoy it. And I titled it Painted Spring because I think it does kind of look painterly with the background. Yeah. There's nothing necessarily distinct. And it kind of looks like a watercolor, except for that one fish in the front, which I quite enjoyed.
Well, it was unanimously liked by the judges. I
Well,
can tell you
that means a lot.
because
Appreciate it.
yeah, well, it is something completely different, and judges love that. Judges love to see different things and go, oh wow, that I've not seen, and then you look at all the elements and how complicated, it is to sort of put that together, and how clever, you had to be to get all that sort of lined up, and for the vision for it. I just think it's a fabulous image, and it's just what this competition is all about. Is sort of uncovering gems like this, and obviously
Thank
some of the
you.
other stuff we've seen this evening as well. So Simon, Matthew, really congratulations on this. It's it's a fantastic picture. Few comments coming in. Silky says, again, another fantastic shot, very unique. I really enjoy photos from this special environment. Underwater is a superb perspective. And Crystal says, underwater creativity at its finest, Matthew. Another showstopper. No,
Thank you.
can't disagree with that. So let's just stop sharing that image and bring you up. Matthew, it's great to talk to you again. Some fantastic work. And we were talking off air about what's next. And you told me you've just got a puppy. So
Yeah.
there won't
That's
be
what's next.
anything. There won't be anything for a few months.
Not anything extravagant, at least,
No.
but hoping
I'm
to at least
sure.
get some local underwater stuff here
Yeah,
soon.
I'm sure you'll manage to get out and come up with something else. But no, fantastic picture, well deserved win, and thanks for coming on and having another chat. It's been great to sort of hear the story behind it. So I think everybody's appreciated that one. So so many congratulations again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for entering it. It gives us something interesting to judge, and that's why it's first place. And now that I know it's you, I have been following your work for a while. So not just because you paid me a compliment, but I like your vision. So keep it up when the puppy allows. I'll be curious to see this this image, which you've tantalizingly described to us without sharing us. And keep up the great work, man.
Yeah,
thank you.
Good
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, Matthew, good to talk, and we'll talk again soon, no doubt.
I hope so.
Okay, all right.
All right, see you guys.
Cheers. Okay, bye. Where does that leave us? Where does that leave? It leaves us. What have we got left? Okay, amazing picture.
Yeah, I think we did all right.
Yeah, we did good. We did good. Okay, so let's, because I know we're over an hour in. Let's show everybody my Founder's Choice Award. So let's line up this video. So my Founder's Choice Award for wet is now, Alex can't be with us because he's away on a trip or something. So anyway, let me bring that image up because it's I love this picture, obviously. Let's share that screen.
Yeah, it was pretty tight, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah.
You weren't the only one who loved that picture. It was right up there in the running.
Well, exactly. I mean, the thing is, I choose my favorite from what the judges have sort of selected as their sort of tight, the sort of top 5, 6, 7 shots. It always comes down to that sort of number, and I choose what I like, unless there's something else that's really, really stood out to me and I want to see awarded. But generally, I'm in agreement with judges and what they actually finally get down to. They are generally the best images from from what's been entered, because they fit the category the best, and all those elements come together. But this, for me, I think he's entitled it "Singing in the Rain." Let me just, I did write down what he actually said about this image. So yes, it's entitled, this image, "Singing in the Rain." So this is a New Holland honey eater. So Georgina Statler will know all about New Holland honey eaters in her native Australia, of course. Okay, so he says, "They are amazing to watch. I was able to take this picture on a rainy morning in Albany, Australia. For me, rainy pictures have something extra. I was hiding in a dry spot, and this New Holland honey eater obviously liked the rain, so he struck a great pose before leaving his post." So I think what I like about this is that a lot of people don't photograph stuff in the rain. and I like seeing different conditions. So you've got that element of rain, and you can clearly see the raindrops, and then you've got this fantastic pose. I'd called it the conductor. To me, it looks like a conductor conducting an orchestra with that lovely wing position, the head tilted back, the beak open, the tail fanned out, the lovely sort of soft background. All your focus is on this, is on the bird, and then you've got these lovely raindrops. I just think, when you get all those elements in together, it's just brilliant. And I love the little bit of blur at the wingtips as well. I adds sort of, a bit of dynamic impact to have that bit of blur. So for me, that's a great pose, and I'm sure Georgina would appreciate that one as well when she sees it, if she hasn't already. So it's amazing. It's an incredible picture. So, as a non-bird photographer yourself, although you have done quite well in one bird competition, I seem to remember.
Under the waves, yeah.
What sort of stands out for you in this picture?
Well, as a non-bird photographer, I immediately understand that is rain. I immediately give that pose, which I give it a similar sort of meaning to you as some sort of sing or cry or some sort of interaction with the element, where maybe we even overstate that, but that's how it sort of looks, isn't it? And it's also it's a bird which I don't know, not that I know many birds to begin with, but it's also sort of quite novel in that sense. And then I think Georgina gave us the ID, and it's a little bit unusual, I think. So yeah, I have no qualms with your founder's choice as a non-bird photographer in the traditional sense. I think it's a nice image to pull out, even more so because it's truly wet.
Yeah, and that was the other important thing, wasn't it? And as we said right at the start, it had to be truly wet. It had to show, that had to be a major component of the image. And of course, that's the bit that's the icing on the cake, isn't it? Is that element of rain in this picture. So yeah, no, fantastic picture. No, this is a bird I'd like to photograph. So yeah. So Georgina keeps inviting me to Australia, so you never know.
But now you're fully converted to Shetland, aren't you? That's the place to be.
God, it's fantastic. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, I said well, obviously we were, I was telling you earlier, but a couple of weeks ago I was in Shetland and spent some time with Rebecca Mason, and I know you've been on the boat, with Phil as well.
Yeah, be going back actually. So.
Oh yeah. Well, Josh has just arrived today in Shetland as well.
You said it's the place to be.
It is the place to be. Although he should have arrived yesterday, but they got delayed by fog or something, so they couldn't fly in. But anyway, he's made it so hopefully there'll be some fantastic stuff coming from him as well from Shetland. So I'm sure he'll enjoy it. I had an absolute ball. I loved it. Loved every minute of it. Want to go back. But
yeah, it's a really special place.
It is. Let's just have a look see what comments we've got. Crystal again. She says, such a fun shot, Alex. I also see the conductor in this shot, Rob, but singing or conducting, either way, this is a musical image. I think that's a really nice way to describe it. It is. Very musical image. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, right. So let's stop sharing that, as good as it is. Where are we? Stop screen there. Right. Because we have highly commended and commended images to show everybody as well. So there's still some fantastic stuff to come. Okay. So what I've done is, Henley, if you've not seen these before, I put these together in a video and we just play, because obviously there are a few, but these are sort of selections that sort of didn't quite get into that sort of final discussion process, but were well liked by the judges and are deserving of some recognition. So let me just bring up the video. So let's do highly commended first. So our highly commended photographers, there might be a few that are tuned in and watching, are So an amazing selection of things, and I think what the common aspect in all of those is again that they're showing obviously being an element of water and wet in some description or other. So I think that was the underlying tone with the judges, was that's what they wanted to see. So yeah, some amazingly artistic stuff in that selection. So yeah. Well done to everybody who was in that who's in that selection. But we have more, because we also need to show the commended images. So let me show those as well, and we'll have a quick chat at the end and sort of wrap it up. But anyway, our commended images. So congrats to all our highly commendeds, obviously, and congrats to our commended images. And these are as follows. I think those images really beautifully demonstrate the standard that we're getting in this competition, and it's made it a joy to judge, hasn't it?
It was fun, and this evening was fun too, sharing the fruits of that. And I think a few important things which maybe sort of my eyes were really wide open to coming into all of this as a newbie is one, I think wild art is really emphasizing that artistic side of nature. And you might have a stupendous, more documentary nature image. But when it comes to that judging room for this competition, that's kind of, if you haven't got that artistic side, it risks falling to the side. So I think that's something important to remember when you're entering this. Not to get discouraged, but also to be aware of it in terms of your selection of what to put in. I think wet as a category is kind of quite tricky and sort of, but it's also quite simple in the sense that we wanted things to feel wet. So to consider well sort of a category in terms of your image selection. And some of the pictures which we've just seen, which were more highly commended or commended, some of them I absolutely love. And if we were dealing with, I don't know, a portrait or just an underwater category or something like that, they might be in a different place. So that's important to acknowledge too. And some of them, the judge, they didn't quite sort of get to the next level. And this is also true for other images which were maybe part of the top 100, for example. The reason why they didn't progress is actually because the judges took a look at it and they thought, oh, you've got a great product to work with here. But if you would just, recompose or adjust this thing, it could be even better. And to your point around, it's up to you to decide which image from the series is best when you enter a competition. It's the same in terms of sometimes you got something special. And I even know this feeling myself. You put it in, and you're almost hoping that a judge is going to give you the benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, no, you did well, even though this could be better. But actually, it's the polar opposite. It's actually a feeling of disappointment amongst the judges because and they won't give you credit of the composition which could have been, even if it's there and we can recrop it in the judging panel and think, that would be it.
If only, yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're in that top 100, maybe
Yeah.
have a little critical reevaluation of your image.
And I think, photography is, as I said, I've said this before, it's an iterative process. I mean, if you've got a great idea, you're not going to pull that, or very, very unlikely to pull that shot off, straight away. It's a question of going back and going, okay, look at the results and think, I could do this better, or I could do that better. Next time I'm going to approach it slightly differently. I'm going to add this element in, or I'm going to shoot it from a slightly different angle, or I'm going to wait for slightly different lighting conditions. I mean, you may find yourself in a very, very unusual situation, which is another one of my frustrations, actually, when people do find themselves with conditions, for example, or with behavior that, you can't ever repeat, and they don't make the most of it in some way. That's a real shame. And you see, there might be some behavior that is totally amazing, but as you say, the composition isn't right, or the angle isn't quite as good as it could have been if only taken a bit more, thought about it a little bit more, a bit more deeply. So yeah, it's all about fine margins of, when you come down to the last 3, 4, 5 pictures, there are tiny, tiny things which make the difference. It might be, an annoying thing in the composition, one slight thing, which maybe some of the other judges haven't seen. And then somebody will say, yeah, but that really annoys me. This part distracts my eye. And everybody goes, oh yeah, now I can't unsee that. So it is all these little subtle things, that you have to be so careful with, and be as perfect as you can be as critical as you can be about your own work. I mean, all those shots are fantastic, but the winners, they've got those extra elements. They're more complete, I guess.
Yeah, and we're all striving for that moment, and I think we start with a passion for two things, right? We start with a passion for nature and for photography, in whatever order those things come. And we have to remember that, I'm a professional underwater wildlife photographer, and I have some days which are fantastic in the water where I see incredible things, but I don't capture an image which does that experience justice. And I think that's the frustration, or even the thing which you alluded to, which is I'm keenly aware that, I didn't bag it. It's not as good as the moment. And so on the one hand, I think we need to remember to enjoy those moments, because that's why we do it in the first place, and not, get entirely stuck in the photographic process. But I understand that, sort of actually what we're all driving for is to see something special. And that could be really overlooked insect, or it could be an orca. And then to bring back a picture which can be shared with others, which makes them recognize and feel something of how it was for us in that moment.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you make. I mean, when I went out on the boat, with Rebecca in Shetland, I spent probably 10 or 15 minutes. I just put my camera to the side and I said to her, I've just got to take this in. I've got to process this. This is just an amazing, the gannet colonies and the amount of birds and what was going on. I don't want to miss this moment. I don't want to just have my eye fixed to the camera trying to take pictures and not experience this place. And so that's what I would urge people to do as well. Don't, as you were saying, I think is a really, really good point, is don't let the photographic process necessarily take away your enjoyment of the whole thing and the whole experience, particularly with something new. So anyway, that's a good place to end. Let's just see. I think there's maybe
what's
one
next,
more.
Rob? What's the next category?
Well, I'll get on to that, because I'm going to do my normal little run through.
Sorry,
so yeah, we're we're just about to, we're in the judging process at the moment for airborne. So top 100 for airborne. Look out for that next week. We're just finalizing the judging on that, as I said. So I'm not sure exactly when next week. It depends on when we can get everybody together and have that final meeting. So, but look out for that. Will be, in the next few days. What else have we got? We've got Colour, which closes for entries at the end of this coming week. So Friday. So do make sure you take part in that one. It's a very broad category again, of course, and we always get some fantastic entries into colour. So I'm really looking forward to what you've got to show us in that category. And then we're into Tiny, which opens at the beginning of July. So that's another new category, and that was something that Michael Sneddick, another one of our new judges, talking of new judges, obviously with Henley here. He actually, that was his concept. So I think it speaks for itself. So basically, sort of not necessarily just macro. We did a live on this as well, of course. So you can go back and have a look at look at the live that I did with Michael and see exactly what we're looking for in that category. So that starts in July. And just one other small sort of item just to catch up with before we say goodbye is the latest podcast episode is out. And Josh and I had a chat about social media and growing your Instagram and Facebook accounts and all that sort of thing. So if you haven't yet listened to the podcast, go and check it out. It's on the website. If you go to the community tab, it'll drop down and say podcast, but you can also find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or whatever they call it these days, and Google Podcasts too. So they're on those sort of major players. And our next podcast might well be with you, Henley, if we can get all our diaries together, because we were going to have a chat about underwater photography. So
I'm game. Diaries hardest part, but I'm game. Let's do it.
Yeah, as I said, Josh is away at the moment, so it might be a week or two before we can organise that. But we'll get together and we'll sort out that, because I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a really interesting subject to chat about. So so thanks to everybody for the lovely comments, by the way, on the podcast, which have been coming through, and obviously all your downloads. So that's really appreciated. Henley, thank you very much for your time and all your words of wisdom this evening. It's been fascinating. Yeah,
it's been fun. Thanks for having me. Enjoyed the process.
Been brilliant. Well, hang on the line. We'll have a quick chat afterwards if you've got a couple of minutes before you put your kids to bed. Anyway, one just final comment from Silky. It says, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend. And you too. Not what's left of it. And hope you have a lovely week. Everybody has a lovely week coming up. And don't forget to enter colour, because that closes. You haven't got long left. Anyway, right. Let's get to the outro, because it's time to wrap up. We've been going for an hour and a half. These things always go on. It's just, I think, but I think we just, the pictures deserve the time, to discuss and talk about. And that's what I hope, people have enjoyed. So, Henley, thanks a lot. Hang around. We'll have a quick chat afterwards. But thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the photography. Enter colour, a few days left. Tiny next. Top 100 out for Airborne shortly. And we'll see you all again soon.